Okay, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our RBT exam practice questions series, where we're going through the next set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack and practice exams. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's keep going. Taco Tuesday is a tradition at Tate's house. Tate likes a very specific type of tortilla that is only sold at Whole Foods. Tate will go out of his way to get those specific tortillas in preparation for Taco Tuesday. What is likely maintaining Tate's behavior? So the question is a little open-ended. Let's start by always identifying whose behavior. Well, in this case, it has to be Tate, right? Because we're looking at Tate's behavior. There's nobody else in the question. That makes that part simple. So let's look at Tate and what he's doing. We know Tate has this tradition of Taco Tuesday, and he likes a very specific type of tortilla they only sell at Whole Foods. So what does Tate do? Well, he goes out of his way to get those tortillas for Taco Tuesday. Now, why would Tate spend the time to go out of his way to get those tortillas at Whole Foods? In other words, why is Tate going out of his way to go to Whole Foods? Well, because he wants those tortillas, and those tortillas are only sold at Whole Foods. Therefore, his behavior is going to continue in the future because if he wants those tortillas, he goes to Whole Foods. When he gets to Whole Foods, he can buy the tortillas he wants. So what consequence is maintaining Tate's behavior? A, positive reinforcement. Well, if we think about it, he gets to Whole Foods, what happens? He gets his tortillas. So he is being positively reinforced for going to Whole Foods because he gets there and he now has access to the tortillas, which increases behavior, making it reinforcement. So positive reinforcement. It's not negative reinforcement because nothing's being removed from him or his possession, or nothing's being, no stimuli are being removed from the environment when he gets to Whole Foods. He's gaining access. The only way he gets access to the tortillas is he gets to Whole Foods and then he has those tortillas. So those are being added. It is reinforcement, but it's positive reinforcement. Now, C and D are both punishment, which we can rule out. And why is that? Because punishment only decreases future behavior. You will never have a question where the behavior is increasing in the future because of the consequence, and that consequence being reinforcement. If the behavior is decreasing, it must be punishment. If it's increasing, it must be reinforcement. In this case, Tate gets to Whole Foods. He gets to buy his tacos. He's being positively reinforced, which is maintaining his behavior in the future. A behavior technician works in a school. This technician floats in between rooms and works with a few different children. One day, the technician is asked to act as a substitute teacher on Friday, as another teacher will be gone that day. What should the behavior technician do? This is kind of an ethical question because we're thinking about your duty, your role, your competence as a technician. First and foremost, your role as a technician is to implement. Whatever the plan is, you should be implementing. And you only should be implementing and working with people and situations within your competence. In this case, this technician works in the school and they go in between rooms and work with a few different children. Nothing wrong with that. However, one day the technician is asked if they can substitute teach on Friday because another teacher will be gone that day. So what should this technician do? Put yourself in the shoes of this technician. Think about your qualifications, your competence. What would you do in this situation? You're there as an RBT. They want you to substitute teach. What should you do? A, act as a substitute since our employer made the request. Well, only if you're qualified. If you're not a teacher, you're not trained to be a teacher, if you've never taught, our ethics code says you should not teach. We have to work within our competence, especially if you're there as an RBT. You have to work within your competence. So B, only act as a substitute if she is qualified and competent. Yes, this goes for any of your clients. If you suddenly get a client who, let's say, has bipolar disorder and you know nothing about bipolar disorder, and that's their primary diagnosis and that's what you're working with, well, you need to be sure you're competent and trained on what to do in those situations. If you're not, you might not be eligible to work with that particular client. Same thing here. If you're not qualified and competent as a teacher, you shouldn't substitute. C, refuse, as this would create a dual relationship. Well, no, because you would still be working with them in a professional capacity. You're still their teacher, but dual relationships aren't the issue here. It's the fact that you might not be qualified or competent. D, report the school to the Behavior Certification Board for ethics violations. Remember, BCBAs, RBTs, BCABAs, behavior professional who are personnel who are certified by the board abide by the ethics code. Other people do not. Don't mistake the ethics code that we abide by as the ethics code that other people abide by. The school has their own policies, their own rules, but so do you. And so the only reason you should substitute is if you're qualified and competent. And this goes for anything. Make sure you're trained, qualified, and competent before delivering any type of service. You, a behavior technician, are asked to use a whole interval measurement system to track social engagement for one of your clients. After defining the behavior, the interval is set at 15 seconds. What is the requirement for you to record a response in this scenario? We're looking at your behavior and what are you doing? You're trying to record a response. And the question wants to know, what is the requirement? What meets the requirement for a response? Well, we have to look at what you're doing. So it's you, this technician, using whole interval measurement. In whole interval measurement, what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for that behavior to happen the entire interval. So in this case, our interval is set at 15 seconds. And if our interval is set at 15 seconds, how long must that behavior occur? Well, it's whole interval. It has to occur the whole time, the entire time. The other options are partial interval and momentary time sampling. And with partial, right, it only needs to occur for a split second. Momentary needs to occur at the end. So the important part in discontinuous measurement questions, is identifying what measurement system you're using. So you're using whole interval. So let's answer the question. What is the requirement to record a response? A, record a response whenever the client is engaged socially. We're not taking frequency data. We're taking interval data. Very different thing. A would be frequency. So A is not it. B, record a response if the client engages socially at any point during the interval. What measurement system would B qualify as? Well, B will qualify as partial, because if the behavior happens at any point, that's partial interval. C, record a response if the client engages socially for the entire interval. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for the behavior that happened the entire whole time. And then D, record a response if the client engages socially at the end of the interval. That's going to be momentary time sampling. So this is a good question to test your fluency. So if you struggled here, go back to discontinuous measurement and review partial, whole, and momentary time sampling. And then pick each one, B, C, and D, that matches. And then A would simply be frequency. So if you struggled again, quickly go back and review your measurement items and definitions before moving on. That's the purpose of practice. If you're going to teach a parent how to do an extinction procedure and you instructed them to follow through with any task demand that they gave, even if the child engaged in problem behavior, what would likely be the function of the problem behavior? All right, interesting question here. We're looking for the extinction procedure, but at the same time, the function. So let's start just with the extinction procedure. If you're going to teach a parent how to do extinction, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to tell them we're going to withhold reinforcement for a previously reinforced behavior. What does the function have to do with that? Well, the function is going to tell us what is reinforcing the behavior. Are they getting a tangible? Are they gaining attention? Are they escaping from something? Is it automatic? That's going to tell us what we need to withhold. In this case, you're telling them, parents, to follow through with any task demand they give, even if the child is engaged in problem behavior. So what are we preventing? What are we telling the parents to prevent? We're saying do not let them escape. So if you're going to use extinction, and remember, this is very general, and you've got to use the information they give on the exam. If the exam is telling you the extinction procedure involves following through a task, that means you're preventing escape. So what is likely the function? A, tangible. Well, nowhere in the question are we talking about withholding an item or not giving an item. So it's likely not tangible. What about B, attention? Nowhere in the question have we talked about giving attention. What we're talking about is preventing C, escape. If we're following through with task demands, We're preventing them from escaping the situation. And it isn't automatic because it's socially mediated. So this is really a pretty straightforward question, but the way it's worded makes it more complicated than it actually is, which is why we always slow down, really think about and analyze the question, make sure you know what they're truly asking, and then we answer. So if we're following through what demands, we're preventing escape, the likely function of the behavior is going to be C, escape. If you were asked to identify the thinnest schedule of reinforcement, which of the following answer choices would you select? What do we mean by a thin schedule of reinforcement? Well, let's start with the more common idea of thinning reinforcement, right? When we start to thin the schedule, what are we doing? Well, we're increasing the response requirement and we're decreasing the amount of reinforcement available. Well, why do we do that? Well, think about when we first start teaching a skill, we might be using an FR1 where every response is reinforced. We're going to eventually thin that schedule so that it's harder to earn reinforcement because we want to strengthen that behavior, start to generalize. So we're looking for the thinnest schedule of reinforcement. We're looking for the reinforcement schedule where it's going to be the most difficult to obtain reinforcement and there's going to be the least amount of reinforcement available. So if you look at A, CRF, that just says continuous reinforcement. There's only one continuous reinforcement schedule. That's an FR1. So A and B are the same thing. FR1 is continuous. There's only one type of continuous schedule. I'll say it again. That's an FR1. Every response is reinforced. And FR1 is the thickest schedule you can find. A and B are out. So now we have C and D. C is a fixed interval 3. D is a variable ratio 5. With C, every 3 minutes, the client is going to get reinforcement as long as they respond once after those 3 minutes are up. So it's not going to take a whole lot of effort. They have to wait, but reinforcement is available after a single response. VR5 is thicker because it's going to take them 5 responses on average to get that reinforcement, maybe sometimes more. C, you really only need to respond 1 time if you know the schedule. D, you've got to respond on average 5 times. So D is going to be thinner. It's going to take more effort than C to get that reinforcement. Professor Snape is able to grade all 50 potions exams in only 5 hours. At what rate does Professor Snape grade exams? All right, quick rate question. Rate is what? Rate is frequency over time. So to get rate, you have to take your frequency and divide it by your time. What is our frequency here? Our frequency is 50 exams. We counted those exams, we got 50. Our time is 5 hours. So we're going to divide 50 by 5 and get 10. So would B be our answer, 10 exams? No, 10 would be, or even A and B are both counts. With rate, you have count plus time, or count divided by time. So C and D represent rate. What is the correct rate? Well, the correct rate is 10 exams per hour, which we got by dividing 50 divided by 5. Understand the difference between frequency, which is a count, and rate, which is count per time. So what rate does Professor Snape grade exams? C, 10 exams per hour. Awesome. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. Check out btexamreview.com for study materials. As always, let us know when you pass so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.